Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon. It's in conjunction with ISC Research, Times Higher Education, BMI. And what we're talking about today is international schools, your gateway to global undergraduate recruitment. So I would like to take a little bit of pleasure in introducing who's on the line today. Myself, I am Spencer Hawkes. I am the Sales Director of BMI Times Higher Education. I've been lucky enough to work in this wonderful industry for over 35 years now. Yes, I know, I don't look old enough. I'm always happy to help any higher education institutions who might be interested in increasing their international enrollments. My contact details are going to be at the end, so feel free to reach out. At this stage, I would like to introduce Katie Hebbs, Business Development Manager from ISC Research. Katie, we'd like to say hello.
Yes, hello everybody, and thank you very much for joining us on this call this afternoon. So I am part of the commercial team here at ISC Research, and I have particular responsibility for looking after the requirements of our higher education clients. So hopefully through the next few minutes, I'll be able to show you how we can support you and why this sector should be important for the international student recruitment.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie. Looking forward to that. Alongside Katie, we have my dear colleague, Catalina Powell, Global Director for THE Counsellor at BMI THE. Kat, please say hello.
Thank you very much, Spencer. Delighted to be here with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to ask any questions, as Spencer said, throughout the presentation, and we will try our best to answer as many questions as we can. As Spencer was saying, I am Global Director for THE Counsellor, and I am responsible for the area of our business that deals with high school counsellors in particular as an audience. So later on, I'm going to be telling you a little bit more about what that entails, and also we'll be sharing with you some tips and tricks from our counsellors about how to maximize that relationship between institutions and high schools all over the world when putting together your international recruitment strategies. Thank you, Spencer.
Fantastic. Thanks, Catalina. So we've got some good stuff ahead of us, haven't we? And we've got some really juicy research. And I would love to start off by introducing Katie. Katie, the mic is yours.
Okay, so over the next few minutes, what I want to focus on is really the importance of data in research in supporting effective international student recruitment strategies, knowing where to focus and why, what types of schools and students you're looking to attract, and how to engage with college counsellors and key stakeholders who are concerned with student pathways to higher education, all critical in your plan. Having this in advance will really help to make sure that you're making best use of your time, and more importantly, not wasting time in talking to the wrong audience, but having more meaningful interactions, being better prepared when you have those conversations with the schools, and lead to more successful trips when you are in country and meeting face to face. So this is what ISC Research is all about. For 30 years, we've focused solely on gathering data and market intelligence on the K-12 international school sector, those teaching in English. This is designed to provide accurate, in-depth information to inform your plans and to help fast-track your engagement with your target audience. At ISC, we consider an international school to be one that's teaching wholly or partly in English and charging tuition fees. Most of these are in countries in countries that don't have English as a first language. Some are not, some are in the US or Australia, New Zealand, clearly teaching in English, but most are in countries where English is not a first language. So what type of data do we provide that will support you? The data we have is extensive. It's not only used by universities, but we also consult with schools and investor groups who are looking to build new schools and are looking for new opportunities to open new institutions. And we have research partnerships with a lot of industry bodies to help build a much better understanding of what's happening in this sector. In terms of the data that we can provide that will help you, we have information on the number of schools down to city level, where those schools are, the details about the schools, curricula and exams, the enrolment numbers, tuition fees, key contacts, not only their contact name and their direct email address, but their exact job titles and their LinkedIn profiles as well. We have over 72,000 contacts in our live database. Alongside this, our market intelligence reports and white papers and webinars will keep you abreast of all of the shifts and changes, the growth predictions for each of those countries, to make sure that you're working in an area where it offers the best opportunity for you. Bulk of the data is live and up to date, so you're always working with very current and up-to-date information. So why is this such an important sector for universities to focus on? We've seen extraordinary growth over the last 10 years, both in the numbers of schools and students in almost every part of the world. You can see here a 50% growth in the number of schools over the last 10 years. There are now more than 14,600 schools, actually, as of today's figures, globally, teaching 8.8 million students. Close to 80% of those schools are teaching high school. So this is a big opportunity for you. Close to 600,000 students exited these international schools this year, and 90% of those will be looking for higher education places. So why is this? I think the key drivers for this significant growth are really many, but the key ones are a demand for an education in English, seen as the language of business, globally recognized qualifications that really demonstrate a focus on good quality education, and also the drive for a more holistic, all-round education, one that focuses not only on the academics, but the soft skills and the skills that are needed for the 21st century workplace. We see this in the CAS element of the IB, but also initiatives like the Global Citizen Diploma, which focus on preparing students not only for study at higher education, but to be effective collaborative workers in the workplace as well. There's also a much more student-centered approach at international schools in helping those individual students achieve their potential. And this is absolutely true in terms of the place of the college counsellor and the work that the college counsellor does in guiding individuals with their HE choices. It highlights even more the importance of universities working with those college counsellors, building those relationships so that their students are finding the best fit for them when it comes to higher education. So where is the market opportunity? Growth around the world, but as we can see by far, have we missed a slide here? Is there another slide? There we go. Okay, that's it. Thank you very, no, the other one, the global growth one. That's it. Thank you very much. There has been significant growth all around the world in nearly every region, actually, but by far the largest percentage of schools are in Asia, and we include the Middle East here. More than 57% of all schools are located here. In the last 10 years, there's been huge growth in the Middle East, and it's still growing. There's significant development in Saudi Arabia as the country gears up to reposition itself on the global stage. It sees education as a key cornerstone to that initiative. Lots of schools in China, lots of UK premium schools and US premium schools have opened campuses in China, and Southeast Asia. Regulation change there has meant that this style of education has been opened up to a much wider range of students in Southeast Asia. The current economic boom in India has also seen a growth in demand for places at international schools. Interestingly enough, the dynamics are slightly different, or the demographics are slightly different, I should say. So the fees that they might charge at a premium school in China will be very different from those that they charge in India, but the quality of the education may very well be the same. So why is this a good opportunity for universities? Firstly, I mentioned that aspirational parents and students willing to invest in their education see the importance of a rigorous education, one that leads to qualifications that are well recognised in higher education institutions around the world. It also makes it easier for you to assess their suitability for your institution. We can see that 75% of schools follow the top 5 curricula. The IB is growing in popularity, and more than 36% of schools follow the IB. The UK and the Cambridge curriculars continue to be strong and significant. And the US and the AP, for example, are particularly attractive in Eastern Asia, where passport to US universities is seen as an attractive aspiration. And what about the students? So why are these students attractive to recruiting universities? Firstly, the main language of instruction is English. So this means that their English skills are excellent. They'll fit very well into English-speaking universities and be able to manage the courses very well. Secondly, they're taking globally recognised examinations. So they are used to rigorous, demanding study and having those qualifications demonstrates to you that they're well prepared. All the schools that we're talking about here are charging tuition. So these students and their parents are willing to invest in their children's education to get the best outcomes for them. Also, they're very globally minded students. Most of them will have spent their school years with classmates from around the world. It's not unusual to find a school that accommodates children from 15, 20 different countries, backgrounds, cultures. So they have really a much more globally or global view, I should say, of the workplace, and their aspirations are to study and to work outside of their home countries. Our research shows that at least 90% of students are headed for higher education, and a high percentage of those will choose to study outside of their home country. So this is a great opportunity for all recruiting universities. I thought it would be interesting and helpful for you to see the words of one of our university clients and how the data and researchers supported their own recruitment strategies. I also mentioned that ISC research is alongside live data, tactical data in a live database. Alongside that, we publish a whole range of country market intelligence reports and white papers. Our latest one builds on this brief introduction to give a much deeper understanding of how international schools are preparing their students for their next step in higher education. We've just scratched the surface really in terms of why data is important and how it will support your plans, but to understand more fully and in the context of your university, I think this would be a really good paper for you to download. You can scan the QR code here to download a free copy of that paper. The other thing I'd like to mention, of course, is the importance of the live data. We've touched on it here in terms of what information is available to you and why it is important to plan and have this at your fingertips in advance of starting your recruitment strategies. But if you'd like to take a deeper look at that and discuss how that fits in with your own plans at your higher education institution, then can I suggest that we book a one-to-one call and I can talk you through a demo of the platform. We can look at some live data and drill down into the information that you particularly want to see. There's a QR code page, and we can find a time that works for you to take a closer look at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie. I just am reeling from that one figure that you said, 8.8 million students who are in international schools around the world. What an incredibly important cohort that is. Thank you very much. Great information there. Now I'd like to hand over to my colleague Catalina Powell, who is going to be talking about high school counsellors and insight into trends and priorities. Catalina, we've got some great information to share with us. Would you like to take the mic?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Spencer, and thank you, Katie, for that great overview from ISC. As I was saying at the beginning, at Times Higher Education and BMI, we launched a new division of our business called THE Counsellor, and that is the area that I oversee. First of all, I should make a very important initial clarification. When we say counsellors, we are talking about those careers counsellors, college counsellors, university advisors. There's several names that they go by depending on the different territories. So just to clarify, that's what I mean, rather than say the social emotional counselors, part of the psychology departments that some high schools have. So what we wanted to do is to create a number of offerings, particularly for that audience. And very importantly, because we are so close to higher education institutions, and that's always been where we have worked with in the past, and we have very, very strong links to institutions all over the world. What we wanted to do was to create those spaces for universities to connect with high schools. And I don't want to steal Spencer's thunder. He will tell you a little bit more about that towards the end of the presentation. But just to give you an idea, as part of our THE Counsellor proposition, we have 3 separate areas. The first one is THE Counsellor on the left-hand side, and this is a resources platform that is free, that is accessible from the Times Higher Education website, and it contains articles, resources, recordings of webinars such as this one, which hold content that is important for counsellors. A lot of the content is written for counsellors themselves, so it's this ethos of for counsellors by counsellors. We also work in partnership with Huron University, Common Purpose, UCL, Unifrog, and UCAS, so they provide some of the content as well as our editorial team. If you work for a higher education institution, I would still invite you to come and have a look through that platform, because reading a lot of those articles will give you a very good flavor around some of the challenges that counsellors face, some of the complexities of their role, and can give you some more ideas around your strategy, which again, we'll talk a little bit more about later on. The second element is the CAP, our flagship professional development program, the Counsellor Accreditation Program, which is a free online course that we offer for all high school counsellors, endorsed by COBIS, as you can see there, the Council of British International Schools. And we are just shy of 5,000 counsellors from all over the world who have either completed or are in the process of completing the CAP. And, you know, bearing in mind, we only launched just over a year ago, the growth has been absolutely phenomenal. And the spread, we're talking about around 170 countries and territories. So it's incredibly representative of the global international school community. And again, finally, the events, but I'm going to let Spencer tell you more about that later on. So earlier on this year, we went to that community of high school counsellors that we have who are highly engaged with us, and we ran a survey wanting to understand a little bit about their priorities around trends and around tips for universities. So on the right-hand side, you will see on the box on the right, you will see a little bit of information about the survey itself, the number of respondents, the countries and territories represented. As an idea of the type of respondent, we can tell you that around 88% told us they deliver an international curriculum. So Katie was talking about that just a moment ago. They said that around 77% of their final year students consider studying abroad, and this is in the post-pandemic years, and around 66% actually end up enrolling at university. So this is, again, just to give you a flavor of the type of schools that we work with, type of counsellors that we work with, who are work with students who are incredibly internationally mobile. So the first question that we wanted to share with you, we said to the counsellors, previous slide, please, Andrea. Thank you. Compared to 5 years ago, has there been any significant changes in student interest for specific subjects of education abroad? And of course, there were huge variations. I'm not going to say this is the be-all end-all, but these were recurring themes that kept coming out amongst the respondents, saying that the traditional professions, your medicine, engineering, business, were decreasing in popularity, as well as staying in the home countries, whereas some of the more technology-based programs, your STEMs, AI, computer science, were increasing in popularity. But interestingly, so were the more creative courses, so your arts, your design, liberal arts was up there as well. Students talking about the importance of having work placements was increasing as well, or is increasing as well, I should say. the interest in studying abroad, and this is both in terms of the entire program abroad, but also in terms of having an element of studying abroad within their undergraduate degrees, and the importance of sustainability. And this is not just around programs where the curriculum included sustainability, but also in terms of the credentials of the institutions that they were choosing. We'd now like to run a couple of polls, a bit of an interactive element, if I may. So the first question that you will see coming up that Andrea will put in a minute is, on average, how many higher education institutions do you think a counsellor deals with in terms of helping their students send in applications each year? So in a typical year, how many different higher education institutions do you think a counsellor has to work with? And this is in terms of actually doing the applications rather than just inquiring. And then the second question is, on average, how many different countries do you think the counsellors work with in a typical year? And you can see some brackets here. This is, no issues if you get it wrong. This is just for a bit of fun to see what you think. So we'll give a minute for you to respond to the two polls, and then we'll come back to the answers to see if you were right or if you're surprised by what you hear. Thank you. We'll jump onto the answers now. So in terms of the number of higher education institutions, on average, they told us that they were looking at 25 different universities, where essentially the counsellor has to become an absolute expert on the application process of 25 different institutions on a typical year. And the next slide, please, Andrea. And now in terms of the countries, so we ask how many countries might they be dealing with? That's 11 different countries. And again, this is just for a bit of fun. The range varied greatly. Once you look at the data, it's fascinating to see how it compares depending on the different countries. But what we wanted to do with this little exercise is just to show you how complex the job of high school counsellors are and how incredibly precious their time is. Next slide, please, Andrea. Another question that we asked the counsellors was around the communication methods. And again, there might be a few surprises here, and we could have run a poll about this as well, but just in terms of you thinking, how do you think your audience best wants to receive your information about your institution? And perhaps slightly surprisingly, the majority still rather have emails. And this is, again, the counsellors, not the students. Closely followed by phone calls, video calls, the live webinars, such as this one, video and on-demand, social media, not as popular as some people think it is, instant messaging, WhatsApp, Weibo, WeChat, and live chats within the websites were the least popular option. So overall, what were the sort of key things that counsellors said to us? If I could talk to a higher education institution and give them some advice about how to communicate with me as a counsellor better, how to ensure that you stand out from all that noise, all the hundreds of universities that are knocking at my door every year, trying to talk to me, trying to talk to my students. These were some of the tips that they shared, and hopefully you can take some of those away to apply within your recruitment strategies. So the first thing that they said was start early and play the long game. And what that means is start engaging with your prospective international students from a much early age than just the senior year, perhaps the final 2 years of high schools. So think about how can you best approach them? How could you start putting your brand across and developing that relationships with the students from when they are in years, 8, 9, or whatever that might be, 10, depending on which country you're looking at. Invest in the relationship with your counselors. And counsellors will be very, very, very keen to talk to you, to understand what you're doing, but especially to work with you to find the best ways to communicate with the students. Tailor your communications to your audience, and perhaps this rings true in that data that we shared with you around the preferred methods of communication. So, you know, your institution might have created a fantastic campaign on social media where, you know, there's some fabulous TikToks done by your student ambassadors that is super edgy and fabulous for students, but your counselor is not that demographic. So make sure that you are tailoring those communications for the high school counselors as well, because they will be the gatekeepers to then introduce your brand to the students, and then you can go with full on your TikTok campaigns with your students. Combination of both online face-to-face. So, you know, make sure that you are varying the way that you communicate, and you're giving counselors different opportunities to pick and choose as well what suits them. The next one is around be clear on your strengths. And I think that's a very important one that the counselors spoke to us about. You know, they can probably count with, I was going to say count with both hands. No, a lot more with both hands. The number of institutions that come in with basically the same template to present their university. This is our university. This is how many Nobel laureates we've got. This is a photo of our campus. This is, you know, our location on the map. Everybody does the same thing. So think about creatively, how can you stand out and how can you become more memorable for the counselors and for the students. And finally, consider alternative ways to present your offer. And this goes hand in hand with the second point that I made there around investing in that relationship with counselors. Counselors will be very keen to try and find the best way for you to present to the students. And sometimes this might be the traditional presentation format where they bring them into a hall and you can present to them. Sometimes this might be a coffee and chat, perhaps a webinar, perhaps a workshop, perhaps a completely different format that you had never thought about. But if you as an institution show that willingness to be flexible and engage with those counselors, develop that relationship with those counselors, I'm absolutely sure they'll be more than willing to think of different and creative ways for you to be able to reach those students. I hope you found those useful. And, you know, we said, please send us any questions, but also any comments, perhaps things that you agree on, that you don't agree on. If you want to share experiences that you've had around some of the things that we've spoken about here, we'd love to hear about it. Thank you.
Great, fantastic information there, Catalina. Thank you so much for that. I did really enjoy that. And it's also worth noting as well that she might not have mentioned it, but Catalina is actually used to be a recruiter for a rather well-known British university. And so she is a poacher-turned gamekeeper in this instance. And so her advice really does come with a lot of experience and is very accurate. So what I'd like to talk about a little bit is how you can connect with these incredible counselors through various events. So let's look at tips to engage with college counselors. So when we're working for the CAP, as we know, we do the Counselor Accreditation Program. As part of that, what we're doing is we're running workshops. These workshops are held in various places in the world. And what BMITHE do is that we fly in the best counselors from the best schools around the country or around the region. We pay for their hotel bills in 5-star hotels, and all of their sort of expenses and meals and things like that. We then deliver the CAP training, but as part of that, we also run a workshop where the counselors get to have essentially speed dating in a big ballroom within these 5-star hotels with universities that have also flown in from around the world to meet them. So this is a product that we've been doing for some years now, and it's absolutely successful. It's good for Maybe you're an international recruiter, you have a certain region, you want to connect with international school counselors, and you want to do it in a swift way. Well, at some of our regional workshops, there'll be counselors coming in from maybe 50 different schools from 10 different countries. It's simply not possible to go around and to visit all of these schools in one go. The trip would take months. And so consequently, our workshops allow higher education institutions to come in and have pre-planned meeting. We use the Marcom Connect appointment scheduling system. You've probably used it. If you haven't, it's fantastic. It allows higher education institutions to go online, read about the school, find out if it's suitable for sending them students, and then to request an appointment. And likewise, the international school counselors get to go onto the platform, choose the universities that they want to have meetings with. Please don't think that those counselors are only going to be choosing to meet with the higher ranked or the better known institutions. Far from it. We've already heard from Katie that we've got 8.8 million students in over 15,000 schools out there. Now, I'd like to think that all of them are going to be going to MIT, Oxford, Cambridge, but they're not. They're going to all sorts of different schools. So these workshops allow you to interact with these counselors and to do the beginning of that relationship. Even if you are a well-known school, another good way to get in front, to build up that trust and recognition, because these counselors, they buy people first, not the institution. They want to know about you. They want to know what you love about your institution. So we will be giving a little bit more details about the workshops in a second. If we can go to the next slide, please, Andrea. So through effective events, I would say that when you are at these events, if it's a workshop, it could be one of ours. When you're there, if you're a higher education institution, you're going to have those meetings. But outside of those meetings, there'll be opportunities to meet counselors at the coffee breaks, at the lunch, at the gala dinners that we hold. You get to make 26 appointments over those 2 days, but there are so many other counselors there that you get to interact with as well. If you are in the region and you have counselors from that particular city or region, go and do the campus visits. Go to the schools, talk to the directors, talk to the students, find out the character of that particular school. And one of the things that the counselors really love is when you use technology to host workshops, webinars. One thing I absolutely love is course taster sessions. So as a rep going to see an international school, hey, what are your students really interested in right now? It could be there's creative arts. We saw that on the up. Or maybe it's sustainability. And you can take a look at the THE impact rankings to see where your institution ranks there. If it's sustainability, why not run a taster session for your university about what you're doing for the environment, what you're doing for all of those key elements of sustainability? These students want to know this. They just don't want to know about the the sports facilities, how beautiful your campus is, and the weather. They want to know about your character and your institution's character. So get that ahead. Next slide, please. So here we can see an example of where our workshops are taking place. You can see that we've got Latin, Central America, Brazil, the Gulf, Africa, Southeast Asia, China, India. Let's use India as an example. Coming up in a couple of months, we're flying these counselors from the best schools from all over India to the Westin in Goa. I know, tough life, someone's got to do it. And at that hotel, they're going to be doing their CAP training. At the same time, they're going to be having 26 meetings with institutions just like yours. So it's a great opportunity for you to go out there, use it as part of a trip, get to know all of these counselors in one fell swoop, and then after that the follow-up is going to be yours. And we've already looked at some of those best ways of following up. We talked about email. Please, whatever you do, never send an email that says dear counselor. Some of the counselors have a filter that will automatically pop that into the trash. these are people that you're going to be talking to. These are people that you're going to be meeting. So a great opportunity to get that one-to-one flavor going. Now, if you are interested in any of these workshops that we're running, please note that they form part of other events that we're running. If we can have a look at the next slide, please, Andrea. And you'll see that BMITHE, the world's largest international student recruitment and media and events company, yes, we are. These workshops will take place during other events. It could be that there are fairs that attract up to 10,000 students coming through. It could be that says our scholarship, our high school visits, whatever it is, we're going to have other products around there to enable you to go and meet students and going to meet counsellors in their own backyard. So a lot of information there. We're going to give all the contact details later on, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to use the last few minutes here for Q&A. We've got some questions coming in. We also have some which have already been sent in as well. We've got one here, Jeffrey Salang-Sang, who says, is the cap only for high school counsellors? How about middle school counsellors? Catalina, would you be able to answer that?
Yeah, absolutely would. So the cap is open to any member of staff who works at a school. We find that the vast majority will already be counsellors, but there could also be people who perhaps only part of their responsibility, a small percentage of their responsibility is to advise students on the next steps after they graduate from high school. It could be members of staff who are interested in getting into counselling and perhaps haven't done it before. It could be people that have been doing the counselling for 30 odd years. So there is a very wide scope. And the way that the program is set up, it's around developing skills, but it's around being able to tailor the learning to your own circumstances, which is why it's applicable regardless of the type of school that you're at, the kind of experience that you've had so far, the country where you're located. The only criteria that we have for the cap is to be working at a high school. I should say, if you don't work at a high school and you are obviously attending this wonderful webinar, if you work for a higher education institution, we also have another professional development program. And in a minute, we'll put the link on the chat so that you can have a look through the website as well. That's the IEPC, the International Education Professional Certificate, that we have launched in partnership with NAFSA and with Common Purpose. And this is a professional development program for those working in higher education or interested in working in higher education. So we'll add those details as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Catalina. Got some great questions here. One I'd like to give to you, Katie, as you are one of the leading experts on the planet in this. No pressure.
No pressure.
So Katie, how can we use data to identify target markets and tailor our recruitment efforts?
Okay, that's a good question. In the context of ISC Outreach, which is our live data portal, it will give you a very full and complete view of the international schools market globally. If you are a student recruitment officer responsible for, say, Southeast Asia, you can focus just on that sector and drill down into particular countries. It will give you the number of schools and the details of the individual schools in each of the cities. It may be that you're not having much success in getting into the top schools that you've tried before, but there will be many more spread around the country that are perhaps being ignored by lots of higher education institutions. We hear from college counsellors that those premium schools that everybody knows about are inundated with requests for meetings, but many others are crying out to hear from them and for higher education to talk to them and explain what their courses are all about. They just get ignored. It may be that you just don't know about them yet. So I think there's a huge opportunity with the right level of data to be able to think tactically about where to focus and why.
Fantastic, Katie. Thank you very much. A question here. I probably am going to address this to Catalina. What types of events and activities are most effective for engaging international school counsellors? So we spoke about some of the events earlier on, but as a previous rep for a UK university, what sort of events and activities are really good for engaging counsellors?
I think there's sort of two answers to that, Spencer. I think the very first one, and following on from what Katie was saying a moment ago, is, do your research, because there'll be different types of schools, there will be different types of audiences that respond to different types of events better. So that's kind of like one sort of thing to bear in mind. But from our conversations with high school counselors and from our own experience running events, what we find is the most effective thing to do, and certainly was my experience again as a university rep myself, is you just need variety. It's that combination between the face-to-face element. Perhaps if you don't have contacts in a particular territory, you can attend some of our events. As an example, you can go and create those initial contacts through a face-to-face meeting, put a face to a name, start developing that wonderful relationship, that trust between yourself and the high school counselors, between yourself and the students as well. You can go and do visits to the school. You can run online webinars. You can run masterclasses. If there is a particular area that your institution is very strong on, a very nice way to position yourself as authoritative in the matter, but also to stand out amongst the noise. We keep saying there is so much noise. Move away, please move away from that standard presentation that's all of us former university reps used to do that are particularly, they're the same basically. So move away from doing the same thing that everybody else does and just add a bit of variety. You can write articles, you can, again, do webinars, do masterclasses, do online events, do in-person visits, do as much variety as you can use will mean that your audience has loads of different touch points with your brand, loads of different ways to engage, loads of different ways to be exposed to your offer, and then you can take it forward.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Now, Katie, a question for you. How can we leverage digital platforms to enhance our recruitment efforts? How can we leverage digital platforms to enhance our recruitment efforts?
Okay, I think that certainly in the context of ISC outreach and the live database that we have, it gives you, as Kathleen was talking about, many different touch points, many details about different stakeholders within the universe, within the schools. So it's important as well to focus on what sets your university apart from all of the others. So focus on the courses, the content of those courses. You talked about the importance of taster sessions. Within the ISC database, we have 72,000 different contacts, which includes heads of department, heads of arts, heads of maths, heads of science, heads of STEM subjects, and they also will have an influence over what those students are thinking about when it comes to their higher education choices. So it's important to think not just college counsellor, but also the others that have that influence and help guide those students. So using that platform to do that is important. We've also included LinkedIn profiles in our database too, that you can start to engage in many different ways. We know the email is one way, of course, and it's the favoured way for lots of counsellors, but there are lots of other platforms that they use. I think webinars are a really important and very effective way to communicate with schools and groups of schools. So many schools will belong to one particular group, and if you have the wherewithal and the means to identify all of those schools, which you can do through the ISC platform, then it may be that you put together webinars that talk to just schools within a particular group. I think too that social media has its place. So it's not just one way of communication, it's a mixture of different things, but as Catalina said, to make it varied and to make it personal, that highlights the strengths of your institution.
Fantastic, Katie. Thank you. We were talking about the numbers earlier on. I'm still staggered. 8.8 million students in over 15,000 schools, with around 65% of those students going to be pursuing education overseas. That's around just under 6 million students. That is an awful lot of students that the universities would love to be talking to. Catalina, what insights can you share about the competitive landscape for international student recruitment?
Yeah, I think Katie was mentioning this a moment ago, or I think it might have been you, Spencer. Anyway, one of you said a moment ago around not forgetting, the outside of the top 3 best international schools in a particular city. The competition is absolutely staggering. Everything that you've just said, Spencer, if you think from an institution's point of view, and you're going to be able to tell very easily that my background is marketing here. But in terms of return on investment and in terms of efficiency of budgets, if you as an institution wanted to target millions of students individually, put those costs versus going via international schools where you talk to one gatekeeper, which is a high school counselor, that will then unlock all the students in that cohort, is a bit of a no-brainer. So, because the competition is so immense, and in particular those top international schools, they get so many different universities knocking at their door and saying, please let me come in, let me present to your students, let me meet with your parents, let me, do my presentation, do my thing for your students. As a recruiter, as an institution, that's why you have to become a lot more clever. And that's exactly why data is your best ally. Understand the market, understand the school itself, understand the students, understand how you're going to present your offer and how are you going to put your best foot forward. Because, we were talking a moment ago around if your key selling point is that you have a great campus, that's going to be a pretty hard sell, because I can guarantee there will be a lot of other universities knocking the same door with perhaps a much better campus than yours. Perhaps slightly better, I don't know, sports facilities, a bigger library. So really think about what is relevant to the audience that you're talking to, what is relevant to those students, what is relevant to that counselor to start with, so that then you can talk to the students, and what is the key strengths of your institution, and match those to put together a very, very tailored strategy using all of that market intelligence that we've been talking about, so that it's personalized, as Katie was saying a moment ago, but also is very relevant.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kathleen. There's a question here I actually want to take. What are practical steps that universities can take to create long-term partnerships with international schools? Look, I'm very lucky with my job. I get to travel around and visit some of these beautiful schools and to meet counsellors. As we've delivered the CAP training and as we've held these workshops, I've gone on to have friendships with them, and they are a very different group of people, a very lovely group of people. They are not within faculty. They're often not within the senior management team. They sit in between. They represent the students. They're talking to the students. Often they might be responsible for pastoral care as well. They have known those students since they came in at year 7. They live in the same neighborhood as the students who are attending their schools. They are involved in the lives of the students and the parents. They are not a commercial entity. They're not educational agents. These are people who are working hard for the best benefit for their students, so that their students go out and get the best fit university for them. And so when they come back, or when they are counseling the younger siblings of that student, they want to make sure that they're sending the students to the right place. And that might be Cambridge, and it might be, MIT, or it could be a university in Alabama. It could be a community college. It could be a college of further education. What is important to them is getting the right information and knowing that when they're dealing with the university, their rep, their contact, they trust, they have that relationship with them. They're going to buy, as I said earlier, people buy people first. So never look upon college counselors as as this commercial entity to recruit students. They are people who care passionately about their students. And if you share that passion and if you join them on that journey for that student, then you're going to be more successful with them. That's how I would say the practical steps universities can create those long-term partnerships. And by long-term, I mean, I'm lucky enough to be at the Global International Schools Forum and Workshop that we hold in London once a year, normally around April, May time. That's where BMITHE fly in the heads of counselling from all of the major schools around the world. And at the global workshop, we hosted the inaugural Counsellor of the Year Awards. Absolutely fantastic. First time we've held that, we had the stage, all of the awards were represented, including one of them, which was the Counsellor of the Year and the Lifetime Achievement Award. And this gentleman from Brazil had been working counseling for 40-something years. As he came onto the stage, his eyes were watering, filled with tears, as were mine. He was live streaming this to his family back at home. He was so proud and so emotionally involved in his job. You need to get that emotions as well. So that's me. I'm going to leave that as my little final thought as well. Katie, have you got any final thoughts that you'd like to leave with our great audience today?
I think we've covered a lot of ground, but both of you have highlighted the fact that not all of these students are destined for MIT or Cambridge. You know, they're going to have a wide range of aspirations and abilities, and want to study lots of different subjects. So they're all relevant and they will all have their own criteria. So it's really important to present how you can help them find that best fit. I think that's a really important thing to do. And also just having the data to support those interactions, to make sure you understand who you're talking to and what they're doing at that school before you start to pick up the phone or begin an email that starts, "Dear Counsellor." Don't do that. It's a waste of time.
Thank you so much, Katie. Kat, anything you'd like to add as a final thought?
I think the final thought for me is please move away from the traditional, typical presentation. You know, shake it up, think creatively, think differently, try different things you haven't tried before. You know, with recruitment, and you know, again, I used to live it because that was my day job as well. It's easy to fall into the trap of repeating the same activities year in and year out when you're putting together your planning, when you're allocating your budget, when you're thinking about the activities that you're going to do. Just shake it up a little bit. Find some different ways, some creative ways to reach out your audiences, approach schools differently, invest in that relationship, and just try and find as many different touch points as you can to reach those important high schools that you want to target.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Catalina. Andrea, if you'd like to put the final slide down, we will put the contacts out there. I hope that you've enjoyed today's webinar as much as I have. Some great statistics coming out, some great information, aren't we lucky to work within this particular industry? We hope that you've enjoyed the webinar. Please feel free to reach out to any of us for further information. And if you're a counsellor, keep up the good work. We know that you know that we love you. And if you're a higher education institution, well, good luck with your recruitment. And I look forward to seeing you out there. So that concludes today's webinar. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon.